Welcome to my channel. I had 2 days for 7 goblins. I picked up these printed goblin miniatures from the maker and started by priming them all with a matte white primer. When painting several miniatures at once, it's most convenient to do it in a kind of assembly line fashion. First the skin on all models, then the armor, and so on. The first major step is applying the base color to the entire model just to give it a foundational tone. I started with the skin, first applying a simple green shade, then layering a more olive tone that I felt was closer to goblin skin color. Next, I painted all the armor with Vallejo's bronze paint. Naturally, I chose the true metallic approach rather than non-metallic metal, since I had very little time and needed to paint 7 models in less than 2 days. After that, I painted the cloth parts. I chose red and applied a base coat in the same way. To be honest, at this stage you don't need to worry too much about painting neatly, since this is just the base coat. However, of course, the neater you paint at this point, the better. The last part was the base platform. I went with a simple light blue tone to provide a cold contrast to the red, green, bronze miniatures. Usually during the base color stage, I try to stick to standard colors so there are no limitations on the amount of thinned paint available. This is especially important when you're painting multiple models at once. That completed the base color layer. Of course, the models didn't look very expressive at that point, but that's why it's called a base layer. At this stage, we can at least see all the main color areas and already get a sense of how our model will look in its final form. I started detailing by glazing the skin. I used a light olive shade for this with the same color diluted further with water. I also glazed the platforms to create a mossy effect. Such thinned down paint will naturally take longer to dry, but since we're painting 7 models at the same time, by the time we finish the 7th one, the first should already be dry. Then, using Citadel's Contrast red paint, I added shading to the cloth. This paint is great at enhancing recessed areas, creating highly textured and dramatic fabric effects. Using paints like Citadel Contrast is a great way to add character and definition to your model when you're short on time. I did the same with the armor next. I used Vallejo's black ink paint. It's very fluid but rich in black pigment, which creates an ambient occlusion effect in all the armor crevices, adding depth. I also used a blue ink in the same way, giving the surface a more steel-like tint and making it livelier. Once the platforms dried, I decided to add some dirt and dust effects. It makes platform more natural. While that was drying, I used a sponge along with red contrast and black ink to add gradient shading and more interesting volume. This is really a simple way to create a smooth gradient if you don't have an airbrush or, again, don't have enough time for it. The next step was refining the skin. I used the sponge not for painting, but for removing excess paint to create a dirt effect. After all, they are goblins. One of the final touches was painting the eyes. I used 3 shades, yellow, orange, and red, applying them in sequence and gradually reducing the size of the painted area. sometimes it's really challenging. And finally, the dry brush stage. With this technique, I first enhanced the bronze tones on the armor and all metallic elements in general. At this stage, it's very important not to overdo the metallic paint and to dry your brush properly, because otherwise we risk losing that battle-worn armor effect. I also lightly dry brushed a brighter red onto the fabric to make it pop more, and did the same with a light blue on the base platform. In the end, I had 7 great-looking models ready for the upcoming game. If you liked it, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and thanks for watching.